Hi, Bobcats. Attendance in an asynchronous online course is always an interesting thing to deal with. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at some of the issues that sort of fall under the broad category of attendance for this online class. These are things that have come up over the last couple of semesters of teaching this online. So our objective is to describe the attendance requirements for this class. The first issue chronologically that pops up with attendance is something called roster certification. This is something that the university requires us to do, and it is to be done immediately following the 12th class day. So since, the 12th class day. Since the majority of our content delivery is asynchronous, you are watching YouTube videos on your own schedule. It's hard to come up with some sort of criteria for you are attending the class or you are not. So what I'm going to use for roster certification is completion of the welcome modules. If you're watching this video, you are already working on the welcome module. Just make sure that you complete the participation problem sets and the quiz for this module. If you've completed all of that, that will count for roster certification. For roster certification, the faculty member has to mark you as either attending or not attending. If I mark you as not attending, you will be dropped from the course. So make sure that you get that welcome module completed by the 12th class day. I strongly recommend that you get it completed here this first week of classes because we're already moving into chapter 1. Next week we'll move into chapter 2. So just go ahead and knock out this welcome module, and then when I have to do the 12th class day roster certification, it's easy, you're already taken care of. Let me clear up any confusion that might exist about our synchronous Zoom meetings. The synchronous Zoom meetings are problem-solving sessions. They are not a way that I am delivering content about the course, right? The content delivery is through those recorded YouTube videos. So the problem-solving sessions are an opportunity for you to ask questions of me, for you to ask questions of your peers and interact with your peers on problem solving. The synchronous Zoom meetings are not a required component, right? So attendance is not required at these synchronous Zoom meetings. But let me give you a huge caution. The biggest challenge that most students report in taking online classes is pacing. Students tend to dig themselves these big holes where they ignore a class for 3 weeks and then try to get caught up. That's going to really hurt you in this class. But if you don't look at this class for a couple of weeks, all sorts of deadlines will have passed, and I'm not going to reopen assignments that have already closed because all of our assignments have multiple days, often multiple weeks between the time when they are open and when they have to be completed. You do not have to do things on the due date. Ideally, you're going to be working on this course a little bit at a time every day so that by the time the due date on something comes up, you've already completed everything. The due date doesn't mean this is the day I do chemistry. The due date means this is when we wrap up this section so we can move on to the next section. So you should be working on this class. In an ideal world, you'd be working on it daily. You'll be watching some videos and then doing a couple participation problem sets, doing a few of the homework problems. If you do a little bit every day, you're going to knock this out long ahead of all of the due dates or deadlines. So what happens if you get sick or something major happens, right? We all know that COVID is out there currently, and I've already heard from another instructor that a student had contacted him about getting called up for National Guard service. So what do we do when something big, when life interferes with your ability to work on the class? Okay. In most cases, the course grading mechanisms, such as dropping a grade in a particular category, will be enough to deal with whatever the situation is. I would say typically in a 100-student class, I may have 1 to 2 students at the end of the semester where that was not enough, where something so big happened that something else, some other sort of flexibility needed to be worked in. So for most students, dropping a grade in the different categories, just the way the class is already built, is fine. You know, when really bad stuff is going on, like you are dealing with the loss of someone who is close to you, or you have been very, very sick, sometimes it really is just best to write something off and say, yep, I am just not going to do this quiz, or I'm just not going to do this test, and I'm going to let the course mechanisms kick in to replace this. One thing I would recommend, if it's at all possible when you find yourself in these dire circumstances, please open and submit any participation problem sets and quizzes, even if all you do is put in random answers or you just leave everything blank. The reason for this is that I strongly recommend you use these to help you study for exams. And if you haven't submitted an attempt, Canvas won't let you see these questions later. So if you can take 5 minutes and just open up and submit blank answers on all of those questions, you will be giving yourself access to those questions later. And even if you do random guesses and you get something right, you know, a couple of points is way better than 0 points. In really extreme cases where your ability to work on the course has been severely limited for an extended period of time, you need to be communicating with me so we can figure out what's best to do. If you have COVID, you need to be reporting that to Bobcat Trace. If you're dealing with a death in the family or guard duty or things like that, you need to go through the Dean of Students office for reporting those things. And right now, I can't tell you what is going to be the appropriate way of interacting in a situation like this. I have had students tell me that they've been called up for guard duty for hurricane relief. And for the entire time that they are on guard duty, they are going 24/7 and they have absolutely no time to work on a course. I've also had students get called up for guard duty who ended up sitting around doing nothing, and their COs allowed them to work on the class. And so, yes, they were on guard duty, and no, we didn't have to do anything whatsoever because they managed to get all of their stuff done, right? So we won't know what's appropriate in these extreme circumstances until we're knee-deep in them and we can see what all is going on. So that's where clear communication with me becomes really, really important, and I need documentation. So our objective for this video segment was to describe the attendance requirements for the course, and I kind of wrapped into there, since attendance isn't required, I also wrapped into there what happens if you get really sick or something extreme happens this semester.